Finance people are always talking about savings goals and about the need to have one or multiple savings accounts for emergencies and for your goals. Today we're going to talk about why your pets need a savings account. A savings account for your pet can minimize financial impact of an emergency or unexpected medication for an illness. So I reached out to Angie Briones, host of the Gay Podcast for Everyone, which celebrates the power of storytelling rooted in unconditional love and acceptance. She also hosts Thank You for Joining Me, Podcast Life Behind the Mic, where she explores the mindset, motivation, and real-life balance that helps podcasters keep showing up and creating. Also, Angie's an active in Latinas in Podcasting, a group that amplifies Latina voices in podcasting. She's the keynote speaker at a Latinas in Podcasting Love Your Voice mini summit on Friday, February 13th. When she's not busy doing all of the podcast things, she's mama to a Corgi, Dwight, and she's going to talk today about why he has a savings account. Angie, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here, Deborah. Thank you for having me, and that I get to be your first guest is pretty exciting. I'm excited, so thanks for having me here.
So when I interviewed you for a blog post on this topic about a year and a half ago, I can't believe it was that long ago, you told me that you'd had a cat that ended up needing costly medication in the last year or so of her life. Can you talk about how that experience made you realize the importance of having a savings account for your pet?
Sure. Yeah. So, with cats, I don't know if you have a cat or not, but my cat, she was always in great health. They're pretty much always, in good health until they get older. They don't really need a lot of vet visits, their annual vet visit, etc. But when my cat got older, she ended up developing a tumor. It was literally on her jaw. Okay. It was horrible. It was awful.
Poor thing.
And yes. And it ended up being that she had to have these morphine drops multiple times a day, right? Little bitty drops. Those morphine drops were $300 a month. It was a little over 300.
Wow.
And this was back in maybe 2017, 2016.
Okay.
And where I was at that time in my life versus where I am now, meaning I was single at that time. I was just getting into a relationship, but my finances were my finances. So, adding what was at that time a car payment, for my cat, that was a lot,
Yeah.
That was a lot. And I was digging my way out of debt at that time. So it was a big deal for me. But there was nothing that was going to stop me from taking care of my kitty, She was my whole world. So at that time I had my little Boston Terrier, Riley, and I had my cat, Maddie, or Madison, but I called her Maddie. And Maddie, she needed those morphine drops, and it was for, at least a year that she struggled with that. And it was back and forth. Yeah, that was back and forth going to the vet for different things. Going forward, I needed to be prepared somehow. I wasn't necessarily thinking pet insurance or anything like that, but I was thinking of high yield savings account and stashing away some money. What if I had just had, a chunk of money that was just for Maddie, that was just for Riley and Maddie, really, rather than, I was in a different place, kind of juggling my job, trying to attack my debt, do this and do that. Mm-hmm. And you think I don't have that much extra to give to my fur baby, but you're I'm going to find it. So honestly, I had my full-time job at that time. I still have my full-time job, but I also had a side gig. I did Uber Eats on the side.
All right.
I did Amazon on the side. Mm-hmm. So those things I did in order to help that little overlap, that gap that I needed.
Well, you didn't have to just pay for the medication, but also for the vet visits, because for something like that, you're not going to be going once a year for a wellness check, if your cat has a tumor.
Right. And in Austin, honestly, it could be different now. This was back, 2017-ish. In Austin, the vets are kind of, this is not a bad thing. This is a good thing. They're a little bougie, and it's good. I love that. But here, if you have an ongoing, I'm just outside of Austin, I'm about an hour outside of Austin. If you have an ongoing vet visit, they waive the vet visit if it's recurring, or
wow.
that could just be my vet. But
Oh,
they'll be like, if
wow.
you come within a certain amount of time, they'll waive
That's,
it, which is huge.
I've
That
never
never
heard of
happened in
that.
Austin.
I want to know if other people have heard of it. I'm going to find
I
out if my
know.
vet does that.
I'm like, okay, that's great. So if it's a recurring thing, they'll,
Okay.
you know, if they're constantly checking the same thing,
Okay.
they do work with you on that. And that, like I said, that could just be my vet, but I'm like, that sounds great because that helps, you know. I think
Well,
the vet
yeah.
visit recently, we just took Dwight in for, he had some hot spots and they're pretty bad. Under his arms, he's got a lot of fur, right? He's just he's a
Yeah.
big fur ball. He's a big teddy bear, I call him. So like
Yeah.
under his arms,
I mean, he's a corgi.
he's just a mess. When he comes in from outside, he's muddy, he's dirty, he's got
Oh my
pieces of the
God.
yard. So like he had this one hot spot under his arm that was pretty bad. And we took him in, honestly, it was like 2 weeks ago. We took him in. The weather hasn't helped either because it's been freezing, icy, and
Oh,
then
okay.
comes in and the heater's on. So like all this stuff messes with his skin. And
Okay.
the vet was like, you know, if he doesn't get better in a couple of weeks, you know, they give him a steroid, gave him an antibiotic. If he doesn't get better, bring him back. No vet visit fee. We'll just, you know, see what we need to do with the
Oh,
medication or what have you. And I was like,
okay.
that's great.
Wow.
It
So
was
people
helpful.
need to ask their vet, you know, not be afraid. A lot of people are just kind of like, I can't afford this, you know, put my pet down. So I think it sounds like it's worth asking
Yeah.
your veterinarian if, you know, your pet has some kind of chronic condition, if they can waive some of the follow-up visits.
Yeah, because honestly, it's so funny. I was telling my wife this morning when we were just chit chatting before she went to work. I took Dwight in yesterday for his recheck, and as I'm listening to this other lady chatting with the vet, I heard them say something about there's some sort of membership that they have that I didn't even know about. That
Oh.
if you sign up, you get 10% off of the office visit fees.
Oh,
And I meant to ask about it. Honestly, I forgot about it. By the time I left, I forgot about it. But I was like, that's interesting. I didn't even know about that. So maybe some vets are
okay.
starting to do new things to kind of help people out, which I think is kind of important, you know?
yeah.
Because people, honestly, they kind of, I don't want to say they shy away from taking their pet into the vet, but it's a huge financial thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so
Yep.
like even while I was sitting there with Dwight and we were waiting, there was this lady who I could tell just by the context of the conversation with the vet tech between her and the vet tech that she had not taken her dog in to trim its nails for a while. And the vet tech was clearly frustrated and rightly so.
Yeah.
And was saying, you know, you need to take your dog to be groomed. And
Yeah.
I was just thinking in the back of my head, grooming visits are a lot too. And
Yes.
and you know, I don't know where this person is financially. So everything adds up. And I think if there's even a little thing where it's 10% here, 5% there, whatever, it all adds up and it's all really helpful because you don't want to be that person who hesitates to take your dog in for things that they need. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
we take Dwight to his grooming every 2 weeks and that's expensive.
It is expensive.
It used to be every 3 weeks, but like I said, he's a low rider. You know, he's low to the ground, and
He needs it. He needs it.
3 weeks
sure.
was 3 weeks was crazy. We were like, no, he's got to go every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I mean, I get that. We when we had chickens, we had a at our previous home, we had chickens and a dog got into our backyard, which was fully enclosed, and attacked one of the chickens. And it was my middle son's chicken. Her name was Hedwig, and damaged or broke her like the wing and then bit her. I didn't even know where to take her because the vet that I had taken, you know, the dog and the cats to didn't see animals outside of dogs and cats and like
Yeah.
rabbits. So I found the only local, and I'm in Seattle, so the only place that I could take the chicken was a bird and exotic animal veterinarian about 15 miles outside of Seattle. And the visit cost me about $300 plus, you know, all the medications and all that and the supplies so that I could heal Hedwig. And I, you know, at the time I was not in a place where I was even, you know, I had no money on savings. I was just in a not a good place with my money.
Yeah.
And then when everything happened financially, I was just like, oh, and when I learned about sinking funds and multiple savings accounts, I was like, oh, I'm going to start a sinking fund for the cats. And I used that money to pay for when we had to put Reina, our dog, when we had to put her down. The kids wanted her cremated, so I paid for it out of our sinking fund for pets. And every year I use the sinking fund to pay for the annual visits of 3 of our cats. And I made my son, the middle one, the one with the chicken, he has a cat. And I'm like, if you want to have this cat, you have to save for her. So he has a sinking fund for Lula so that he can, she can get her annual visit and whatever. Because our pets are part of our family, and I don't want it to be a situation where we have an emergency and we don't have something that's going to help our pets remain part of our family.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there was a time and I'll rewind even further than 2017, way before that, where I had to take Riley for something. I can't remember. I think it had to do with her nose because she was in Boston. She had a flat nose. And, again, wasn't in a financial position to be able to have any of the conversations, but my mindset was, I'll do whatever I need to do. So then, of course, you go into care credit, or you're looking into a credit card or whatever. And in my mind, there's nothing that's going to stop me from taking care of my pet. But the bad part about that is, of course, then I've got to figure out a way to dig myself out of that hole. So fast forward to where I am now, and just like you just said, now I know the importance of saving money, setting it aside specifically for Dwight. Even those vet visits, like you said, the annual vet visits, it's nice to not even think about it, It's nice to just go, it's there, not even worried about it. But it took me a minute to get to that point. That definitely wasn't overnight.
Yeah. And people don't think about their pets in that way. They just think, oh, I buy their food, I'll buy them a toy once in a while or a doggy bed. And it doesn't come out out of a dedicated sinking fund or savings account. So can you share how you budget for Dwight each month? Do you have a set amount that you put in his account, or do you just when you have extra cash, you just transfer that over?
So
how do you plan for it?
So I do have Dwight has his own little categories within our monthly budget. And I laugh at that because that's just so lesbian of us, right? Of course, Dwight has some categories of me, for me. He has, when I do my monthly budget, I do YNAB, which has little buckets basically. And every month I'm able to kind of see on average what I spend on, or I say what I spend, what we spend on his treats, on his food, on his toys, this and that, what have you. So that's his basic monthly budget. Okay. And I just use that as kind of, Chewy is the worst one. I mean, Chewy can be a car payment sometimes between his food and his treats. And that's a whole other story because he's got to lose some weight, and the doctor yesterday was like, well, he did lose 2 pounds. So I'm going to give him,
Yay for Dwight.
two paws up for that. But we also have just a sinking fund set aside. And it's not even, it used to be just for Dwight. We had different ones, a handful of sinking funds. Now we got to the point where we were like, you know what, let's rethink this. We know what we're spending month to month on different things, his food, his treats, his pet sitter, things like that, right? He's got different things. But we started thinking big picture about when he gets really sick or if something happens. Okay. Because he got really sick last year. He got pneumonia. And it was really bad. Yes.
Oh my God.
Poor little dog. It was awful.
How did that happen?
It was horrible. And it was expensive, it was $2,000 was that.
There you go.
Between 3 visits. And the great thing is for us is that we had the pet insurance. So we're able to submit those receipts or what have you. We're almost at that deductible between that. And I'll get back into that more in a minute if you want. But we started thinking, what's the amount of money that we want to have set aside that just makes us feel comfortable? Because when I started thinking about Maddie, when I went back to think about Maddie, I'm like, oh my God, I would need $5,000, maybe 8, right? You just start to think of these big numbers. Because if I'm $300 a month and who knows how long this is going to go on, you just start to panic. And then I was like, I don't really need to panic, really. If I think about this a little more, we don't know how anything's going to go, right? We don't know, Dwight could have a long, healthy life until, but maybe he's not going to have those monthly expenses the way Maddie had.
Yeah.
So kind of just in our mindset, just pulled back and said, what's a number that makes us comfortable to sit in a high yield savings account? And then we'll just focus on his monthly costs or what have you. Because otherwise I was honestly going crazy thinking we're never going to meet this number, that, like this number is just too much for just Dwight, just one little component of the whole budget, right? And so I was like, if I need $8,000 for this and $5,000 for that and $2,000, like it feels like too much. It feels like I just couldn't breathe when I started thinking about it like that. Yeah. And so then I was like, you know what? The reality is, and a lot of it has to do with the pet insurance, is like once you meet that deductible, it's a lifetime thing with the pet insurance we use, which I can get into in a second if you want. That kind of took some of the pressure off of feeling like I had to have this huge number in the savings account. Okay, that makes sense. I can have something that's just a little more manageable because we ended up going with Trupanion for our pet insurance. And I'd never had pet insurance before, but after Maddie, I was like, I think I need to do this. Yeah. And so that kind of helped because Trupanion has it to where they also have categories. So like the pneumonia, if he has pneumonia, when you meet that, it's a per category deductible type thing. So
when you say category, do you mean like illness?
Yes. So for the pneumonia,
cancer, pneumonia, broken leg.
Exactly. So each thing, so like he has the hot spots came up twice in his little 4-year lifetime so far. So he's got something for that. That's one category. And then pneumonia, he's got another category. So once you meet the deductible, it's a lifetime, like you've met it for the lifetime. It doesn't reset after a year or what have you.
Like human insurance.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was helpful because it was like, well, let's hope he never has this pneumonia episode again, right?
Yeah.
But if something were to happen, God forbid, we don't really have to think about the money part so much as just his well-being. Because that pet insurance kind of took a lot of the pressure, the financial pressure off of thinking we've got to have all this set aside.
Yeah, that really helps. So you mentioned that Dwight has a high yield savings account. So a lot of people are afraid to open online accounts. I've come across this a lot because they don't trust the idea of keeping their money in a bank that doesn't have a physical space. So what are some tips that you would give people to finding a good, solid, high yield savings account? What should they be looking for in general? Maybe not, even if they don't have a pet, but like for a pet or for anybody or anything. Yeah. What would you say that is something good to look for?
Honestly, I was the same way as far as the physical branch thing. And so I had up to last year, we had 2 high yield savings accounts with 2 different banks. I had one with Ally and then one with Capital One. Okay. What I loved about Capital One and what I still love about Capital One is that it is online, but in Austin, I think they're like 2 or 3 branches still. They're not convenient to me. However, I feel like, if I really needed to, I could go in, and they're limited branch ability, what have you, but there is a physical person there. So if I had a question, I could at least go and ask a question, which I have done. And like I said, I also had Ally. Okay. And both were great for a long time, to be honest with you. But I did put a little more, I don't know what the word is, but like a little more oomph behind, I can't think of what the word is right now, but importance behind the fact that when things went wrong with both, if something went wrong on my end with Capital One or Ally, the biggest difference of what I would say people really need to look for more than anything is how do they help you when something goes wrong? Because I had something happen with my Ally account, somebody like a fraud type thing. And they were horrible, to be honest with you. They were just really bad. Had the same thing happen to Capital One. I mean, not in the same moment, but like in different time periods. Oh my God. And it was a completely different experience. And even though what was important to me was at the time when I opened the account, what was important to me was being able to go into the physical branch. Cause like I did like that experience. Right.
Okay.
But I said, I'm going to have both of these. I'm going to compare both of these things, thinking that what was important was being able to physically go into the branch. But the reality for me was when something goes wrong, I didn't feel like Ally fixed
Was that
it.
for you?
And yeah, exactly.
Wow.
You know, it was
That's
I had
crazy.
2 or 3 things that eventually I closed the account, and that was like 3 months ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, my wife and I both closed the account.
That's our go-to bank. I tell everybody to go to Ally. We've had such a good experience with them. All my kids
Yeah,
have their
I
accounts
hope you
with
continue
Ally.
to, because I've heard nothing but good things. But
Wow.
I just so happen to have that experience. So I would just say, you know, when you're researching high yield savings account, what I did was just, you know, I'm comparing what do I get on this online account versus this online account, and they're all very similar. Really and truly, they're all very similar. I think you just go with the one that works for you. But after my experience,
Yeah.
I'm thinking the most important thing to me is ask people what their customer service experience has been like.
Yeah.
That's a big
That's
thing.
interesting because I've had my first high yield savings bank was at CIT Bank, and that didn't work for me. So I moved to Ally, and I've been so fortunate with
good.
Ally. We've been really lucky with them. And so my pets, they have their little bucket at Ally.
That's what I do love about
But
Ally. I love
but
the
I
little
do tell
buckets.
people, I do tell people the same thing. You want to find a good customer service fit for you, and I agree that a lot of them are basically the same. And so looking at those different things like customer service, always of course making sure that the bank is FDIC insured.
Absolutely.
And then think about, like you said, that having a place to go in and ask questions was important to you. So is that something that's going to be important to you, or do you prefer to talk to people on the phone or through chat, you know, and then look into those little details and features to see if that's what you want. And then, you know, people are always chasing the interest rates, which aren't the best right now, but they're better than anything you're going to get from your local bank or credit union.
Oh, absolutely. And I like what you said about, you know, the Ally with the buckets. That is very true. I do love that. I don't really get that with Capital One, but they do it a little different. Like you can open like up to 25 different accounts,
Yeah,
like savings
that's-
accounts or whatever. So
Yeah.
you can transfer between and all that stuff. And I guess they essentially work like a bucket. I don't love that I have a different savings account number for every, you know, this one for Dwight and for the house and whatever, blah, blah, blah. Whereas in Ally, it's kind of all in one and you can just move it between the same savings account. I do love that so much. It just ended up being, you know, the experience
Yeah.
multiple times wasn't
and that's fair.
great. Yeah.
So one of the questions I had, you've kind of answered already. Why do you pay for insurance if you're already saving for Dwight's care? But what you said earlier was that, so besides having an account for his, you know, goodies and his needs and his food and things like that, you also have something for his care, but you also like the safety net of the health insurance. So
Yeah.
can you explain what you looked for when you were, so my cats don't have health insurance or veterinary insurance or whatever we call it. They don't have insurance, and I am looking into insurance. In fact, I've been researching it for the past week. And can you explain what you were looking for and how you ended up with Trupanion, which is a Seattle-based insurance company?
Yeah.
But like what were you looking for? Because my experience with healthcare for humans is complicated enough. You've got to
Right.
decide between PPOs and HMOs and finding a provider and then meeting your deductible, and then is it a year, does it reset every year? What are the copays? How much do I pay for this visit? How much do I pay for that visit?
Yeah.
And so I want to know if it's as complicated for pets as it is for humans.
So far from my experience, no. Like it's
Okay.
pretty straightforward.
Okay.
They all have like 3 to 4 big bullet points that are the differentiators between all of them.
Okay.
The only reason I went with Trupanion, and really I have to credit that to my spouse, but I mentioned Trupanion because a friend of mine used it, and
Okay.
she had referenced it a few times, and she has like 5 different fur babies. And she
Okay.
was like, this has come through for us exponentially. Like we've had all these
Oh,
problems with, this particular pet or this particular pet, and it's never a problem to submit the
okay.
claims and to get the reimbursement. She was just
Okay.
like, it's great.
Oh, okay.
And we found like we haven't had a moment where we've had a reimbursement yet, although we're very close to like on that pneumonia one.
Uh-huh.
Unfortunately, we're very close. We hope it doesn't happen again though. We,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
hope we just never meet that threshold. But the biggest differentiator for us as far as choosing Trupanion was not only that our friend used it or my friend used it,
Mm-hmm.
but that Trupanion had the lifetime. And I know I'm going to say this wrong and I probably should look it up as we're talking, but like per category, once you meet that deductible, it's
Okay.
for the lifetime
Yes.
of the pet and the illness. So if they have allergies, which so
Okay.
many animals do, right? They have
Yeah, yeah.
allergies. That's so helpful because then once you meet whatever your threshold is, whatever you chose as your deductible, it's taken care of for the rest of that pet's life.
Okay.
They'll pay up to like 90% and then you pay the 10%
Oh,
difference. Yeah.
wow. Okay. So what I was finding out with pet insurance is that they don't pay for wellness visits,
Right.
which is weird. I think it's weird. I think that they should pay for them because that's when you're going to
It makes
find,
sense, right? Like
yeah,
it
it's
makes sense that they
preventive
would.
care. When I was looking around, I saw a few places and I looked at Trupanion, I looked at Lemonade, and I looked at a couple others, and none of them cover those visits. And actually, Trupanion stated on its website that that's something that people should budget for, which, okay, yes. And so I wonder if, like, that was something that made me, like, hesitate because I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. But then, of course, I'm thinking, well, the vet visits, I pay, I think, like $89 to $95 per cat once a year. And I'm paying for 3 cats. Then we have the cost of the insurance, which for my oldest cat, it's pretty expensive. It's close to $50 for her, just for her per month. Because she's like 8 or 9. And then I have my 2 younger cats who are going to be 6 this year. It's pretty expensive for them not to cover wellness visits. But then you're making me hesitate and thinking that maybe I'm wrong because of that lifetime deductible. But if they don't meet the deductible, because what am I trying to say here? So you have a deductible that you have to meet, which means that you're basically paying for everything that the cat is going to the vet for, or the
Right.
animal. And then once that deductible is met, then that's when the insurance kicks in.
Yes. And,
So,
it's hard to know
yeah.
if that makes sense mathematically because
Yeah.
there's too many factors involved. And that's where, honestly,
Yeah.
that's where we had our conversations. The only thing that made a difference for us was that experience with Maddie because it was like
Yeah.
if she had had something, once I met that, let's say I had Trupanion and I met that deductible that ours
Yeah.
is $1,000, I think, on that. I wouldn't have stressed about
Yes.
things. I would have been able to just focus on her.
Yeah.
And, there was the stress of, is she going to be okay? The stress of how do I take care of her? Am I doing the right thing?
Yeah.
How is she feeling? There's so many, the emotional stress. Then you've got the financial stress of, I've got
Yeah.
to, make sure that I have this extra money in my budget every month. And
Yeah.
that was the big thing of like, you know what, if we're only, quote unquote, only spending $50 a month, on the monthly fee,
Yeah.
does that give us enough peace of mind? And for us, the answer was yes.
Yeah.
And
For
I
sure.
think that's what it came down to is this could be a waste of money in the sense that maybe Dwight will never need it. Let's hope he's super healthy and never
Yeah.
needs it,
Yes,
right?
Of course.
And so, it's like $50 a month times 12 months, and times, however long he lives, etc.
Yeah.
And you can do that. And I think it just ultimately comes down to what is going to make things easier and less stressful
Yeah.
emotionally and
that's-
financially.
And that's what I need to think about because it's not just the 1 cat, it's the 3 cats. And because the
Yeah.
other cats are older, So we'd be paying just over $100 a month for the 3 cats. And so then I have to weigh that against if that's going to be like $1,200 a year. If my deductible is $1,000, then I've already met the deductible. Well, no,
Right.
I mean, it's per cat. So that's the other thing. Yeah, because it would be per cat.
Yeah. Like to me, I never really did the high level math. I kept it at high level, I guess I should say. I never did the detailed math about it to try to figure out, let's do this scenario. Let's pretend, this is the scenario.
Yeah, and that's what I tend to do, and that's why I get bogged down.
Me too. I do the
I
same
get bogged
thing.
down.
I do the same thing. But if I
sure.
had, I kept it high level and I was like, let me just pretend. Let me just take Maddie as an example. And,
Yeah.
I only had her wellness visits for most of her kitty cat life, I mean, she was always
then
in
this thing happened.
wonderful health. And then this thing happened and it blew everything out of the water. And I was like, if I had been setting aside money, number one, but that's the thing. What would I have set aside? It would have been a big question mark. And so it really just comes down to, if I don't want the pet insurance, that's totally fine, but I've got to have something or enough of a cushion that I know I can lean on that and not panic.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And like when you talked about sinking funds earlier, and the sinking funds for me, we've got like a handful of sinking funds, the house, the dog.
Sure.
I'm trying to think of like high level. And then sometimes, especially with YNAB, or you need a budget, I guess I should say what that is, what YNAB is.
Yeah.
But it's a budgeting software. Part of their ethos is you need to be okay with just like letting money flow from category to category. Like maybe you have some money over here for Dwight, but your house needs it. So you move it over here and then you put it back over here and you just kind of like roll with the punches is one of their like main value systems. And that's been really helpful for me to like just kind of change my mindset of like money just kind of moves around sometimes. And sometimes I've got to put more over in this category, and sometimes somehow it'll flow back to me and then it'll go right back out. And it's just, if I think about it in terms of just like it just ebbs and flows, that helps with this scarcity mindset of everything, to where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to panic. It's going to be okay. I just have to make sure that I'm saving something, because that like gives me peace of mind, is to make sure that I'm saving something.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that too, and that's why I put money in their little buckets every month. And the nice thing about having that cushion is that, so I've got Samantha as my mother's cat. Arthur Guinness and Sijui are brothers. They're the ones that are going to be 6 this year. Mm-hmm. And I thought that Sijui and Arthur's licenses expired in April. And I just got an email the other day from the county saying, hey, Arthur and Sijui need their licenses renewed. And I'm like, but I'm ready for it because I have that money for them. So, it's something that I have to do. And then their visits are in I think August. But I want to be prepared for even something as minor and as inexpensive as their licenses. I want to have that. I don't want to be surprised. And actually, the cats don't cost me a lot of money, because we try to get them to play with toys. We'll sit down and play with them, and they may do that. I've bought countless cat trees over the years, and they don't want cat trees. They want nothing to do with cat trees or cat beds or, anything like that. So I just end up selling them on Facebook Marketplace. I'm like, okay, this is just going to go back into your sinking
just
fund.
Get them a good cardboard box and they're happy.
No,
cats are great. No, they don't even want that.
No.
Oh my gosh, Maddie used to love a good cardboard box.
I think it's because they're outdoor cats.
Yeah,
and they get a lot of their stimulation from running around and fighting with the neighborhood cats and fighting with each other. But we haven't had that. I mean, I put out paper bags for them and cardboard boxes and little places where they can hide, and they just don't care. So in that sense, they're pretty they're pretty cheap. Just our annual visits. They're because they're outdoor cats, they have to get the rabies vaccine or the booster. And their flea medicine, which we get from Chewy, which I try not to go into Chewy because then I just want to buy everything. So they don't cost a lot of money, but it's also because they're young. So
Right.
I am going to keep looking into insurance for them because I want to make sure that we're prepared in
Right.
case something happens. Because when Reina, our dog, got sick, and I don't know that insurance would have helped, but she developed canine dementia.
Oh.
And, I would take her to the vet and they would be like, you just need to do this and that and the other. But then it got to the point where she was having accidents all over the house. And so then I got her doggy diapers and she would take them off. And then I would try a different size, different style. Nothing was working. And it was just getting to the point where every day I was waking up to having to clean up some kind of mess. And it got to where the vet was like, maybe it's just time to
Yeah.
put her down. She was 14 and she had already lived, I guess, longer than labs are expected to live. But I ended up having to pay for a lot of visits and, for putting her down and for the cremation and all that. And I don't know if insurance would have covered any of her treatment. It definitely is worth looking into for the cats, which
Yeah.
is why I wanted to have this conversation, because I think it's important for people to understand how not just a savings account will help a pet, but also having the safeguard of insurance. And
Right.
you are the perfect example of that, because I always remember your cat. I always remember you
Yeah.
telling me you got your cat. And
Yeah.
I included that in that blog post because I wanted to
Yeah.
have that as somebody who had the experience of having an animal, a pet with a condition that needed care that cost a lot of money,
Yeah.
and how insurance could have been something to help mitigate that, and
Right.
maybe lessen the stress on you so that you could focus on quality of life for your
Yeah,
pet.
and I think you brought up a perfect example with, your lab had a truly good long life with nothing, thank goodness, that for the majority of his life that didn't require vet care. And
Yeah,
in that
yeah.
particular case, insurance probably wasn't a great idea. And I think this is exactly where everybody is at of like, should I get insurance or should I just save money? There's
Yeah.
really and truly no way to know.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to what is going to bring you a little bit of peace of mind when something does happen. Do you think you're going to have enough set aside, or do you want kind of like best of both worlds type situation as far as, well, it's not really best of both worlds, but as
But just
financially of
an
being
extra
able to,
layer
yeah,
of
to
security.
have this, yeah, security. Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah. So
Yep.
can you explain what a hotspot is?
Oh yeah. So it's
is
like,
that?
it's basically like the folds of, how some dogs, like they're a little bit chubby or what have you, like their skin folds, what have you. Well, Dwight's a little chubby. He is a fluffy corgi. He's a little big, but under his arm just doesn't get a lot of air. He's got a lot of fur.
Oh.
He's got a lot of fur, and so it's get a little yeasty, I guess, for lack of better words. It's not very dry, so that moisture really, like, he's got like just bless his heart, just a mess. It's all red, and like
Poor
it starts to
Dwight.
bother them, so then they lick it because they're just trying to like make it feel better, but all that's doing is making things worse. So, he's a little mess.
Does he
I
know
love
that
him. He's a
we're
little
like slagging
Tasmanian
him off?
devil. Yeah.
Dwight.
So he's had that. And a lot of that is just, the type of dog he is. He's got a lot of fur. He's not just a corgi, he's a fluffy corgi. So he's got a lot of fur.
Yeah.
He loves to be outside. And of course, outdoors is just, all kinds of elements. Like I said, when he comes in, he always has pieces of the yard with him. It just
Yeah.
is so funny.
Sounds
So
like
we're
my cat
constantly,
Arthur.
yeah, constantly pulling, twigs out of his fur and this
Oh,
and that.
yeah.
And so under his arm, it just got really, really, really bad. Kind of like a scabby also. It was pretty bad.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. He
I
sounds like
know.
my Samantha and Arthur are very fluffy cats, like super fluffy. And now that it's winter, the cats have all got like their fur has gotten really thick and they've gotten fatter. And when they come in, like Samantha has like locks, like hanging from her chin because she's she looks like she has some what's that big cat? Maine Coon.
Oh,
she looks like she could have had some Maine Coon in her. And then Arthur is a tuxedo cat, but he's a fluff ball. And so, we're always pulling leaves and burrs out of his butt and out of his tail.
That's how Dwight is too. Yes.
Wow.
I know. I know.
They bring us so much stress and joy.
Yes.
And laughter. Like, I'm always laughing at these cats. They're always they have their own funny personalities. So
I know. My mom constantly, she's like, how many haircuts have you had in the last 3 months? How many times has Dwight gone? And I'm like, he consistently goes every 2 weeks. I go every 8 weeks. And she's just like, really? And I'm like, he's our baby, of course. There's nothing we won't do for that little guy. And,
And how old is he now?
He's going to be 4 in a couple months here.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Because when I wrote the blog post, I think he was like 2 and a half, and
almost.
then I was thinking, he's almost 4. So
and he's almost 4, and he's had a couple of things that we really relied on that pet insurance for. So I am kind of glad. I was actually the one who was like, no, we don't need it. We'll just have this high yield savings account.
Okay,
but my number for the high yield savings account, like I said earlier, was just like, it just felt like such a question mark. That once we were talking about, let's just do the pet insurance, it'll at least kind of like absorb this financially. It also, I didn't realize how much it absorbed just mentally of like, we don't need as much in the high yield savings account specifically for Dwight because we know that at a certain point, if something were to happen in any illness or what have you, we're covered once we get to a certain point. So that really did make a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, peace of mind. I mean, that's what insurance is for, like if you even if you never use it, it's there because for those that one time that you may need it. So
and I think with money it comes down to like, are you going to regret the choice, And if you're like, you know what, we did that thing and that was right for us, that's all it comes down to. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Thank you for having me
today. I'm so glad that we were able to talk about this because I go back and I refer people to that blog post because I'm like, you want to know? Yeah. Okay, just go back to this. So now we have an audio and video recording of it. So I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about this more in depth and to give a broader look at all of that. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me and congratulations on your podcast. I'm excited about it.
Thank you.
And I'm really glad to be a part of it.